Well, welcome to the Suicide Monk, and I am your host, and my name is Britton. Just a little disclaimer to let you all know that we are not, I do speak to psychologists and doctors, but we're here to give life experience and not advice. We're not here to lead you down one path or the other, but hopefully you can take some of this information that we have applied to our own lives and apply it to yours. The things that have helped us will hopefully help you. So just wanted to let you know that a lot of us are coaches. I am opening spots for coaching, so that's available. And if you want to support any of these authors, the foundations that I talk to, some of the not-for-profits, I'll put all the links down below. And then if you want to support the Suicide Monk, I will put a GoFundMe down below as well. So those things are just what I wanted to talk about, and thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the good side. Enjoy the conversation. Well, Shannon Walker, welcome to the Suicide Monk, and you are the founder of Northwest Battle Buddies. Can you tell me something about that? I mean, it's a really, really interesting and beautiful thing, and I don't want to mess it up by me trying to explain it. So why don't you tell me about that? It's really beautiful. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for, number one, for the opportunity to be on your show. I really appreciate being able to share the story and be able to be a voice for our American heroes as well. So at Northwest Battle Buddies, we professionally train and gift service dogs to our veterans that are battling PTSD. And I'm sure we'll get into all the details about that. But we've been able to serve 257 veterans in the last 13 years. And we have not lost one veteran to suicide. So as people are hearing this story, they need to know that it truly is life impacting for American heroes, and it's just working. And super, super grateful. And it's an honor to be able to walk with them in their journey for hope and healing. So,
That's
we get
amazing.
to do this here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That nobody's. You always hope. You always you think that you're the potential's high when you walk in this area, and to not lose anybody in that time frame because of what you do, that's beautiful. Beautiful. So I'm sorry, tell me more about that. Like, that was a beautiful, I love that.
Yeah. So, well, I can tell you, kind of how it began, you know what I mean? So people can kind of frame it in their brain about what this process looks like. 'Cause it's so much more than just gifting a service dog, So a little bit about me. I've been a professional dog trainer for 30 years now. And I do what I do based out of need in my life, but also based out of the way I was raised. So my dad, he served during the Korean War. He didn't serve in combat, but he did serve, during the Korean War in the Air Force. And he'd always taught me to believe in God, family, and country. And when you're in the presence of a veteran, you're in the presence of a hero, even though he never considered himself one. And he was an incredible patriot. I would watch him go shake the hand of a veteran and thank them for their service, but be unbelievably comfortable if anybody ever thanked him. And we grew up in Pendleton, Oregon, a cowboy town, and I was totally a daddy's girl. Still am. He's passed away, but still just trying to make him proud every day. But I mean, every year, I'd watch my dad during the national anthem with his hand over his heart, just have tears in his eyes or a quivering chin because he loves our freedom in this country. And he loves the men and women that provided it. And he always taught me that freedom wasn't free, even though I never really knew what that meant. And I still don't, even though now I have a better idea. So fast forward to where I am now in my adult life. And, like I said, I've been a professional trainer for 30 years. I'm a single mom of twins. Now my twins are 29 now, very successful, and they work very closely with me. But when they were growing up, I realized that I had to be able to make a living and take care of my boys. So I had gotten involved in the Schützen sport, which it's a protection sport out of Europe. It's much like police dog training. And I started to compete in that. And I was competing. It's protection, tracking, and obedience. And it's just at a super high level. I was totally in love with it. And when I started to compete in that, while I would be training my own dogs in the park, people would come ask me for help. And then I quickly realized I had a need that I needed to make money for me and my boys. So I thought, if I can just train dogs, if I can just train 4 dogs a month, I can be a stay-at-home mom and put my values in my children. And that's exactly what I did. So that's like 30 years ago. So I started Man's Best Friend, which is my for-profit business. Okay. And I've had that business for, 28 years. And, wow. It's when a veteran came into that business 13 years ago, and he wanted his personal dog to be trained to be a service dog. And I was actually doing something else at the time in the office. And when I heard that a veteran walked in looking for help, they got my personal attention because of the reverence and the respect that I have for our military. And I started to hear about what he needed with his dog, Sammy. He had a beautiful yellow lab named Sammy, and she was young and she was sweet and she had temperament enough. And so I assessed her because I'd trained service dogs before, but I hadn't trained a service dog for a veteran with PTSD. And so we had our conversation, and he ended up leaving her with me for me to train her for that. And I needed to, learn about what she needed to task for the symptoms of PTSD and things like that. And so I trained her for many months. Well, it was when it was time for Kevin to come train with me. That's when things started to change for me. And that's what was very different for me. So, when I was going out and I was training with Kevin in public, of course, we're going to all these places that no veteran wants to go to a mall. No veteran wants to go with PTSD. They don't want to go to crowded places. They don't want the hustle and bustle. And a lot of times their world is really small. But when you have a service dog and you're training, you have to hit all of those places head on and learn how to navigate it with a service dog and use that, because a service dog is truly a piece of medical equipment. And so he had to learn how to use her, but I saw him find courage inside himself to lead her places he was afraid to go alone. And I also saw him be willing to do for her what he was not even willing to do for himself. And so I watched him grow and change. And then I also learned about the suicide rate. I learned about he used to be a front gunner in the Army. And the very last firefight they were in, the men out of his unit that survived and had come home on American soil, 6 of them had committed suicide. Wow. And I just couldn't believe it. I remember sitting at my desk and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I'd always heard my dad talk about that freedom wasn't free. And I was realizing that Kevin and men and women like him were still paying a price for my freedom, even though they weren't putting the uniform on anymore. And it was extremely profound and humbling to me that as an American is a gift to me, paid by somebody else, that so often we take for granted. And so all this is going through my mind and everything else. But when it came time to finish Kevin's training and he passed his testing, I was watching him walk away through the parking lot with his head up and his shoulders back, and Sammy was at his side. And I truly felt like I had made the difference in the quality of somebody's life. And I've done a lot of things in the dog world. I've trained thousands upon thousands of pet dogs for people. I've had the honor of working with multiple police departments, helping them prepare their police dogs for the street. I've competed internationally against 13 countries and won in Europe with a Rottweiler. And I've done a lot of things, and I was proud of all of them, but nothing compared to that moment and what I've done since. And so I watched Kevin walk away, and Kevin, before coming to me, had been very heavily, he was self-medicating with illegal drugs for quite some time before he came to me. And by the time he came to me, he had been clean for a year. And he was heavily involved in the VA, and it was the VA that had told him to seek about getting a service dog. And so, so through that process, but the men that knew him, that were involved in his therapy groups at the VA, saw Kevin before he had Sammy as a service dog, and now that he has the relationship with her as a service dog, and to be able to use her as that tool to help mitigate the symptoms of his PTSD. So some of the men that were with him and been around him, from the day that Kevin walked away after passing his testing, fast forward a few weeks, I had a Vietnam veteran come walking into my business. He rode on a bus, so found out where I was, got on a bus, showed up in my office, and here's this Vietnam veteran looking for dogs. His name was Randy. And I didn't have a dog to give him, but he wanted what Kevin had. And Randy wasn't the only one that started coming. And then I thought, if I can just adopt dogs out of shelters, I can train them and I can gift them and I can say thank you for my freedom.
Right.
And again, that was 257 service dogs ago. And I am proud to tell you that we did find a beautiful blue pit bull that we named Leia out of the dog shelter, and we trained her and we paired her with Randy, and she lived out her life with him, and then he subsequently has passed away of natural causes after she passed away. But the fact is that we were able to serve him. And it started this journey, and I just went right out. I mean, once I made the decision to adopt dogs out of shelters, I went right out to a dog shelter. They checked out my for-profit business. They saw that I had a stellar reputation, and I walked away with 5 dogs, and I just got started. And then I thought, well, maybe I should start a 501c3, not having any clue how to do any of that, because I thought surely people will pay for these dogs, right? And that's how I got started. My dad always said, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes it's really good that you don't know how hard it will be, because it's worth it. But it's, but if your why has to be greater than the price you're going to pay doing it, or you'll never do it.
Right.
And our why is great. So we're in good shape and we're going strong.
That's wonderful. I love this.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Let's take a little breather here for a second. Wow. I'm blown away. Absolutely blown away.
The thing I have to tell you, one of the reasons why this works the way it works is because our dogs are there in the midnight hour when nobody else is. These dogs are with them. They're breaking them out of when nobody else is around, is when the suicidal ideations are the loudest.
Yeah.
And our dogs are there. They're alerting on their adrenaline. They're helping them out of flashbacks. The veterans use the dogs in grounding techniques and pressure therapy. They use the dogs as social barriers. Our dogs are waking them up from night terrors. It's like our dogs are there.
Tell me a little bit more about you were talking, like, what's pressure therapy? Is that where weighted therapy?
Yes.
Like they lay on them?
Yep, absolutely. Wow. So when we're out in public and we train our dogs for 5 months professionally. And then the veterans come in and they come from all across the nation and they train for 5 weeks. And then they pass their testing and then we gift them the dogs. We do not charge our veterans any money at all for these dogs. The dogs cost us $25,000 by the time we gift them, but they are free to our American heroes. And so through all the training that we do, we teach the dogs how to do all this. And then we have to teach the veterans how to identify when they need to use all of those different techniques to help calm their breathing, calm their heart rate, get them out of their head, help with a hypervigilance. So as an example, when we go to the mall for the first time, sometimes the veteran hasn't been in a mall in decades when we go. And the veterans are going to go. They never complain. And that's the thing. We're around the most courageous men and women that walk this earth, and a lot of them, they come out of the military and then they become first responders. They just are going to continue to serve because it's who they are. They just sacrifice for people, and sometimes it's a very selfless job, and it's a very selfless sacrifice until they meet an organization like this and people like us that we say, you know what, it's like, what can we do for you? Because we owe you everything, But anyway, to answer that question, we'll go to a mall and we'll start to see a veteran. First of all, the dogs will alert on their adrenaline and their cortisol. So when stress starts to escalate in the body, the dog will alert on it. They smell it and they will alert on it, much like a seizure detection dog or a dog for like high and low blood sugar. For somebody that has diabetes, they smell it. So they alert on it. Do you have that?
I do have diabetes. I've had it for 25 years, something like that.
So diabetic alert dogs, they alert on your breath, the change in the insulin and everything in your breath, but they alert on that. So our service dogs are alerting on cortisol and adrenaline. And sometimes it'll be very subtle, and we have to teach the veterans, this is what the dog is doing. So a really quick story that what might bring clarity is it was week 5, it was graduation, and we had this veteran, we call him T-Bone. And he had a beautiful English lab named Caden. And so he's doing this interview, and Caden is on a down command at his feet as T-Bone is on camera, and he's talking about his experience coming to Northwest Battle Buddies. And he starts to get emotional as he's talking about where he was at in his life. T-Bone was actually making exit plans. He was already wrapping up his life. So when he exited, because almost all veterans that I know have exit plans, at least they do when they come to us. But the fact is that he was talking about how he was preparing his life to end it. And he was also talking about reaching out to Northwest Battle Buddies and how quickly our veteran liaison responded and what she did and what it meant to him. So the dog is on a down command. As T-Bone starts to escalate in stress and emotion, Caden breaks the down command and sits up and starts to lick his hands. And T-Bone just keeps talking, and he keeps getting more emotional. Now the dog's paw is on him as he's licking his hands. And then T-Bone is still just talking about the interview, and he's just in the moment. And then Caden gets all the way up and puts his all the way up. Now he's licking his face. And T-Bone starts to say off. And I said, T-Bone, he's tasking for you. Share affection with him. Be in the moment. Forget about the interview. And so he, like right there, he just went and started to share affection, calmed his heart rate. He got his emotions back. The dog calmed down. He read down the dog, and he continued with the interview. But this is what happens in daily life. But we have to teach the veterans how to identify. Like a lot of times our veterans are woke up from nightmares, but they don't know they were in a nightmare. Some of them do, and some of them don't. And so the dog, all of a sudden, they just are woke up, and this dog is standing on top of them or licking their face or something. And we tell them, recognize they woke you up because very likely you were in a nightmare. Share affection there. Concentrate on the dog. Smell them. Concentrate on your breathing. Bring it all down. It's called grounding techniques. We want them to just calm their body, because also when they start to share affection, oxytocin starts to go into, dump into their body within minutes. So it's about how to use the tool, the piece of medical equipment that it is. And so, and so often, when we see somebody with a prosthetic, an amputee with a prosthetic, or we see somebody with a cane or a wheelchair or a walker, we don't even question it. But when our veterans are trying to live their life with invisible wounds, they're called invisible wounds of war. It's an invisible disability. So often they get, well, what's wrong with you? Why do you need a dog? Why you don't need, you look fine.
Right.
And it's like they have to deal with all of this. So it's, it's different. So it's important to recognize that these dogs actually are a piece of medical equipment, much like other, like a wheelchair that mitigates a disability. And so it's just really important to bring that education. And then we also bring that education to make sure our veterans know how to use these dogs to the fullest, to bring freedom and independence to their life.
That's amazing. I love
it's
this.
Really cool. It's really cool.
What a process. I mean, and you get to be an observer of all this this thing that you kind of fell into and fell in love with.
Yeah. I tell a lot of people, it's like, it's not very often. I didn't know I wanted to be a dog trainer when I grew up. I just knew I loved animals. I mean, if there was a dog or even a cat on a sidewalk a sidewalk in front of a front yard, I just knew it was lost and needed me. So I was the one. I wanted to save the world. I thought I wanted to be a vet till I worked in a vet clinic, and then I just cried all the time. But I just wanted to save. I remember even as a little girl, because I'm a Christian too, but even as this littlest girl, there was this dead cat on the side of the street. And every day walking to school, I'd stop and pray for this dead cat. I mean, I just loved animals. I've never told that story in an interview, so there you go. I mean, this thing was like dead. It was like only had hair and bones.
Yeah, it was just a little flat.
I just prayed for this cat. Yeah.
Oh,
so, but I had no idea that I would end up being a dog trainer until, I was getting married, and my, the man I married, he just kind of wasn't the dog guy. And he was like, I had a German Shepherd. He's like, get him trained or get rid of him. And so that's why I sought out a trainer. And then I fell in love with the Schutzen sport. I saw how beautiful it was, and it set me on this trajectory. And it's not very often that people can they can take their passion, because it became my passion, working with dogs, and the exchange in the relationship between the human canine bond, which is so beautiful. And so I got to take my passion and turn it into my purpose.
That's beautiful.
I get to walk these veterans walk to freedom with them every day. My team, I don't do this by myself. I have an incredible team. And when we're going through the mall, we're going through the grocery store, we're introducing these dogs, we're listening to the overnights that they have with them. And we're, it's a lot of work. It's so much work, but we get to be a part of that journey with them. And it's an honor to serve them. There's a backside to every blessing. It's hard, but I wouldn't change it for the world because it's worth it,
Yeah. It is hard. And you're right. If we did know how hard it was going to be, we'd probably never venture down the road.
Maybe.
It's sometimes it's challenging, but these come with different heartaches that are much more difficult to deal with. So, and that would lead me into, how do you manage the stories that you hear from these men and women? How has that impacted you? Because being in my position and hearing these stories, I'm an emotional man. Like I'm like, we had to take a break. I'm just like, it touches my heart in a way that I can't really explain. And it's not going away. So how do you manage these horrific stories in these men and women?
You know what? It's such a good question. I wish I could say, I don't know. I'm going to bring a practical answer to that, but I'm going to start with, we all have our own journey of self-care. We have our own journey. So me as a executive over multiple businesses, my team, all the different hats that I wear, my number one responsibility is I'm no good to anybody if I'm not okay and I'm not grounded personally.
Right.
And so, I have my own personal coach. I have my own personal safe place. I have my own personal journey so I can be a healthy human being as I'm pouring into other lives. And so I think it starts with that, because I have to keep things in perspective to protect my team and to protect our veterans. In the beginning, I didn't have boundaries. 13 years ago, my dad had just died. I was incredibly broken. I was newly single mom. I'm doing all of that while I'm when I started Northwest Battle Buddies, I'm starting to build my team, and I would never change anything I've ever been through because it made me who I am. Right. However, there's a lot of things that I don't need to learn twice. Right. And so I've learned how to, through the 13 years and the 257 service dogs that we've gifted and 257 veterans that we've served, we learn on every group and we learn on every dog and we grow. And so there is that, there's boundaries, there's protection, there's SOPs, it's like what are our standard operating procedures? If you can't do it for 500, you don't do it for one. There has to be discipline and there has to be courage, because we have to have courage to make the hard decisions as well. We cannot, my heart might have started this. My dad's, when we look at legacy, in my opinion, isn't just what you leave somebody on this earth. It's what you leave in somebody on this earth.
Yes, I love that.
And my dad left in me what causes me and propels me forward for this, and how I raise my boys and things like that. So when I look at all of that, it has to be handled with wisdom and strength. And like I said, courage, because sometimes we have to have the ability to say no. And even though the veterans are our mission, but the dogs are our responsibilities. Yeah. And we love these dogs, and we get 18 months poured into these dogs before they ever meet their veterans. And so we have to watch out for them for the rest of their life. And sometimes we have to make hard decisions, and there's just a lot that can be involved in that. So we have that discipline as we navigate the journey, as we walk it out with our veterans. But then on the other side of that, the heartache of the stories, it just fuels our why. So when we have veterans, so as an example, I got this text message from an existing veteran. He has one of our dogs, and we wake up to this text message that says, Talon was his dog's name. He says, because of Talon, I can enjoy another sunrise. And he goes on to say, my broken brain decided to end it last night. He was in the middle of the night, sitting with a box cutter in a room all by himself. And he was on the floor, uncontrollably crying. And he's so lost in his brain. He said his broken brain. He's just lost in it, crying uncontrollably. And in that process, before he reached for the box cutter, the dog had broke him out of it through relentless pawing and licking, and was relentless in letting him alone, to where it snapped his brain out of it. And he looked at his dog's face, and instead of reaching for the box cutter, he reached for the camera and he took Talon's picture. And he says, because of Talon, I'm enjoying another sunrise. Well, that was over 1.5 years ago of sunrises. And when I saw the expression on that dog's face that he sent me, I've literally trained thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dogs, all breeds, all ages, all temperaments. I've never seen an expression on a dog's face like that expression that he captured. And the bottom line is if your why doesn't make you cry, the price is too high in anything we do. And this why does make us cry. When we hear the stories of, our veterans losing their best buddy, there's not a group of veterans, because the veterans come here for 5 weeks. There's not a group of veterans that doesn't have an anniversary of somebody's death or a tragedy, or while they're here, their best buddy commits suicide, or their meds are all messed up, or whatever it might be, because life does not stop lifing as they're trying to survive.
Right.
And how do we navigate all that, and how do we compartmentalize that in our brain? Through discipline, through understanding that it becomes fuel in our fire to keep doing what we're doing and to press on and tell their story. And I'm really grateful for opportunities like this, because they need us to tell their story.
Yeah.
And what is their story? They're dying.
Yeah.
They're not living. They're paying a price. They're suffering, but they're the most selfless. One of the greatest things that we have to do when we've met a veteran and he's going to meet his dog is we have to convince him, because he doesn't want to take a dog from another brother or sister that's more deserving. Right. They have survivor's guilt, and they're like, I don't want to take anything from another veteran. Just give and I'm like, and I tell them, if you're in front of us, this is your time, and you need to run with this, because you might be out there with your service dog, and you'll be our mission in action, and you'll bring hope to somebody who's losing hope.
Yep.
So that was a long answer to your question. But
I love the answer. That's a good answer. It's and that's the way I feel about people. If you come across my path, there's reason. It might not just be for you. It might be for me. Like more than likely it's for me to learn something. Yeah. And if I get to give something away, that's great. But there's always purpose now. And so I've been on the side. I don't know what you know about me, but I've been on the side of the veterans. Like even recently, I was going to go take my life, and mine is very different than somebody who's in the military, and what they experience in war and stuff like that, or in the military period. But it's still got me to the same portal that they were going, same place that they were going. So it's very, very beautiful what you're doing. So where are you located?
I'm in so Northwest Battle Buddies is in Battleground, Washington. This is where the dogs are trained and all the veterans are trained, even though we are in 28 states and 5 countries now. We have veterans and dogs in 28 states and 5 countries.
Oh my goodness. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So are you trying to hit all 50, or?
Well, we're just going to serve everybody that's in front of us. If they all come from all 50.
That's right.
We have 100. I think we have over 140 veterans waiting on our list.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's like, the lift is heavy, and the need is great. We had more applications come in this last year of veterans asking for help than we've ever had in the history of the 13 years. Wow. We're one of the largest providers in the United States that only do veterans. Last year, this finishing up, we provided 43 service dogs. And a lot of organizations, that may not sound like a lot to a lot of people, but at $25,000 a price tag, it adds up. But number two, there's a lot of organizations that maybe do 5 in a year. Now, it's not a comparison. Every service dog matters, but I'm just saying, when you're looking at the load or the lift or the body of work, it's a lot. It's really a lot. And so, but we have more veterans asking for help now than we've ever had. And we don't advertise, we're on Facebook. I do every interview that I can. And then, but our veterans are out there. They're our mission in action, and the community and other veterans are gaining hope. Like maybe this will work for them and they can have a different life. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to
Sure.
do.
Sure.
And we do, and we need the help of the American people to do it.
Yeah. How do you choose your dogs? Like when you just go to the pound, is that like
In the
the,
beginning, we did. In the beginning, all we
okay.
did was go to the shelter, which, oh my
Okay.
gosh. Okay. So that just breaks my heart going to a shelter. But I would go through with the attitude that it's Christmas Day for somebody because I knew I was walking out with dogs. So it's just a
Right.
matter of who. And doing this for a long time, like I know how to read dogs' behavior. I know what I'm
Okay.
looking for. They had to be young enough. They had to be social, of temperament, friendly to strangers, things like that. So that's how we would gauge them in the shelter. And then we also would try to, we didn't pay as much attention to what breeds we were using in the beginning, and that there is no breed not to use. But through the years, with all of the veterans that are in the workforce with small children, active lifestyles, and things like that, what we learned was, because we have German Shepherd dogs and pit bulls in our program,
Sure.
but we don't do that now. And the reason we don't do that now is because we have so many veterans on our list. So we also purpose breed now as well. So purpose breeding is we breed English cream golden retrievers and we breed English labs. And one of the reasons is because those dogs are genetically inherently created for this type of work. They are social, and who doesn't love to see a golden
Yeah.
retriever or an English lab?
Right.
Whereas in the workforce, somebody might be afraid of a pit bull or a pit bull mix or a German Shepherd dog. So we don't want to create yet another barrier for our veteran in public. So and sometimes people are intimidated and are afraid. So we try to make the dogs as welcoming as possible. And then for the hypoallergenic choice, we use Labradoodles or even Australian Labradoodles. And so, these dogs, they look like live stuffed animals. They're just so cute, but they just do amazing. So, those are the different breeds that we have now. And I don't have to go into shelters now. We get offered, people will offer us their dogs weekly because they
wow.
maybe
That's
can't
wonderful.
keep them or
Yeah.
so we get the first choice before the shelter a lot now. So we still do rescues.
Yep.
And we still do mixed breeds, but we don't have to go to a shelter to do it now. So that saves us
great.
time. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So did you grow up in Washington?
Yeah, I grew up in Pendleton, Oregon. So Pendleton, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there till I was 24. And then my girlfriend wanted to be a singer and moved to Nashville. So I was 24. I'm like, I'll go with you. So I ended up moving to Tennessee, and I ended up meeting the man I would marry. I got pregnant, had twin babies. And then when they were 4 months old, moved back home.
Okay.
And I just I wanted to raise my boys on the West Coast. And then I became a single mom, and I've been a dog trainer ever since. And my boys actually served in the Army and Marines. And now they both had honorable discharge. Now they're out, and they both have executive positions in Northwest Battle Base. So the Marine, Jared, he is the executive director over K9 operations and veteran instruction. And then my other son, Jacob, who did 2 enlistments in the Army, he is over donor relations. So yeah, they're both just, they wanted to get out of the military because they were with me when we started this. They worked with me at Man's Best Friend. They were helping me train the first dogs out of the shelters.
Yeah.
And then when they went in, as soon as they came back out, they're training again, and they're amazing.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful.
They truly are every mother's dream. I'm really blessed. It's one thing the Bible says to train your child up in the way they'll go and they won't depart from it. And all you can do is love them and instill in them a belief system that you believe is righteous and true. And you hope they adopt it. But when they adopt it and then run with it and serve in the military, they adopted my father's love for this country, and they wanted to serve their country, and things like that. It's like, that's, I don't know how, I don't know how to express my gratitude for the experience of raising them and the value they bring to my life.
That's beautiful. That's beautifully said, actually. I mean, and you don't actually hear it that very often put that way. A mother feels that way a lot of times, but how to express that is not so easy. And then to see them as, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if I hadn't birthed them, I would still want to know them and have them in my life. They're just quality human beings, and I just, there's so many mothers, there's so many people, they just don't have that, and I'm just so blessed that I get to be around them all the day, and we're all doing this together. It's really incredible, and I'm so proud of them. Yeah.
Well, a
You
lot
can
of people
tell.
come. Yeah, that's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
A lot of people come to me from a trauma perspective, and
Mhm.
so it's really nice to speak with you and hear your passion for um, people in the military and suicidal people in particular. It's nice that it's in the military that you focused it that way. And go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, you said, a lot of people come from, I think on various levels, I think everybody has experienced trauma on various
Yes,
levels, including
yes,
myself.
yes,
And what I try to tell my boys, when I try to tell our veterans and things like that, and I don't know everything, but I've been on my own personal journey of healing. I'm in my 50s, and I'm learning, I'm not responsible for what happened to me, but I am responsible for my healing.
yes, yeah,
And it's like, and it's what we do with it. And I think that sometimes our deepest sorrow also gives us the opportunity to have the greatest triumphs.
it
It's like the
does.
darker the story, the brighter the victory.
Yeah,
And so, and I tell our veterans, it's like there's not one veteran that sits in front of us that we see as a victim. They're not victims. They're survivors. They're strong.
yes, yeah,
They're fighting. They're fighting a suicide rate of 22 veterans a day. I mean, the realization is that tomorrow 22 families will be planning funerals. That's the reality of it.
that
And
is the
whether it's
reality.
22 or 20 or 16, depending on what you hear, it doesn't matter. If it was one, it was too many.
Yeah,
It is a
you're right.
reality that is out there. And the men and women who are still continuing to working at finding hope. They are still trying to find a way to be their best self. They're still trying to way to be their best father for their children, or husband for their wife, or wives trying to be, the best wife, or or moms for whatever it might be, whatever the walk of life. They're for their loved ones. They're trying to be their best self so they can be a part of the memories, and they can serve them and bring value and all of that kind of stuff. And I think trauma, and I'm no expert by any means, and I don't hear all the stories you hear, but I will say my belief is that we all have choices to make, and we can either be a victim, or we can blame, or we can take responsibility, and we can thrive and have a
Yeah,
decision and a mindset that we will never quit. I
yes,
tell our veterans, never quit.
yeah,
Never quit. There's always tomorrow. You may not know what tomorrow's going to bring, but we always know what to do that comes next. I may not know what to do in the big picture, but I can always figure out the next step and the next step. And we're responsible for all that, as individuals, and we can be the difference. It's like the power of one turns into the power of many. I was one
yes,
person deciding, if I can just adopt dogs out of shelters, I can train them and I can gift them and say thank you for my freedom. And now we have 257 veterans out there living their lives. We have families that are being made whole. They are more, involved in their communities. We have 140 veterans with hope. I mean, they're on hope. They're on our list. They have something to strive for. We have a Northwest Battle Base team. We have volunteers. We have a sea of people that are supporting us, and they're a part of all of this.
yeah.
We all can make a decision for the good, no matter
That's
where we're
wonderful.
at in our life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And tell me again, how many facilities you have?
This is
28?
it.
Is it 20,
No, we have
but you're in 28
veterans.
states. Oh, I'm
28
sorry.
countries, 28 states. Yes. Yeah,
Yes,
we have veterans in 28 states. Yeah, how many facilities?
wow,
This is it. Yeah,
this is it.
28 states and 5 countries.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a beautiful story. I love this. I love that, even though you've, even, I don't know your trauma in your life, but whatever it was, you've taken that and you've turned it into something really beautiful, and didn't let that, because a lot of times we let trauma destroy our, our course, our path, our
Yeah.
dreams,
Yeah.
any hope. And that's, I find that mine, I did the same thing. So it's no different. And, I didn't have any of that.
I think so often people think that their identity is wrapped up in what happened to them,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be.
Right.
That's my belief. That's
It,
that's where I go in my mind. I'm more than that. And as I grow, I'm not that person anymore. That doesn't determine my value.
Right.
And I have, and I have to go through forgiving myself, moving forward, and taking charge of what I feel is healthy and true that's going to bring value. Because at the end of the day, I am responsible for my decisions, my actions, my everything. But I also have to forgive myself and show grace for myself.
There you go. Right there. I was going to say you can forgive yourself, but you also have to give yourself grace. And that's the
Yeah.
beautiful part of that. There's something about like, I've screwed up today and it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
that is not my true nature. It's not who I want to be. But it's okay. It's okay that I got upset. It's okay that I felt a little sad today. It's okay. And
Yeah.
I don't reside there anymore.
Yeah.
And
No.
it's just okay.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, when I was walking towards my death, I would call him and he would say, talking about some biblical text, because we have spiritual conversation. He's like, if Judas would have waited one more day, he would have known that it was going to be okay. And
That's beautiful.
and then there's, the Princess Bride. I may not kill you today, but I might kill you tomorrow. So you can always take your life tomorrow, Britton. It's like, okay, yeah, I can. Tomorrow's a different day. And if I stay focused on today, tomorrow's not really an issue. And
go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I firmly believe that everybody that is on this earth has a call on their life.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a purpose to fulfill. And I'm a Christian, and I believe God's design is that our purpose is to fulfill, to be a blessing to one another and to love one another.
Yes, I agree with that.
And when people my ex-husband ended up committing suicide as well.
Oh,
and
my.
So I saw the aftermath of all that, and what all of that entailed, and what it looked like, and the pain and the trauma that come. My boys, especially Jacob, his soldiers, he'd be first on the scene for soldiers that committed suicide. He had to deal with, and not only his father, but just all the kind of stuff. So I'm just saying, it's like when lives are cut short, especially by their own hand, what they're robbing humanity and the blessing, and not only that they could bring to other people, but the joy that they would experience also. Yeah. It's just one of the greatest tragedies, because it just robs everybody that would have been blessed, including that person.
Yeah.
From everything that they could have impacted.
Yeah. Being on this side of it, I 100% agree with you. I could not have agreed with you 6 months ago, 7 months ago. Wow. But I firmly believe suicide's not the answer. Yeah. I would have argued with that 7 months ago for sure. 6 months ago, I would have said it's an altruistic choice. But people like me don't understand the impact that we have when we take our lives. Because I think we see all the beautiful things in other people. We see the nature and the gifts, but we can't hardly see it in ourselves. And it's easier to believe something negative from somebody than something positive.
100%.
So, we build walls out of these negative mm-hmm. things and then prove ourselves right over and over and over, and convince ourselves that this is the only path. And I had a solid story. Like, I had a solid argument. Nobody could argue with my story. Like, it's true. My narrative was bad. And now my narrative is very different. Like, I have hope. I understand why people want to live. I have goals. I have purpose. I have. And I'm the poorest financial man I've ever met in my life. Well, not true. I've met some, but I've lost everything. And I'm the richest person I've ever met in my life right now.
Yeah.
I am so happy and so at peace and joy, and I wake up motivated and energized every single day. And I don't take medication.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So one of our veterans, one of the greatest triumphs that first of all, thank you for sharing all that. Now it's beautiful, by the way. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we get to have this conversation together.
Yeah.
I'm glad that everybody that listens to this will be blessed, or whatever they get from listening to this, will get to listen to this because we're having this conversation. So that's wonderful. I don't know if you've ever heard, but I've been telling my boys this growing up. I think my dad probably told me this, but he didn't found it. But it's like the greatest conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself.
Yes.
And
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, it's true. Our self-talk is the most damaging, or it is the most powerful conversations we will ever be in. And then, and the battle of the mind is the greatest battle we will ever have to conquer or battle, because we don't even know we're in it. Yeah. When we're in a battle in our mind, we don't even know we're in it. We're just in it. And I tell our veterans that all the time. It's like the one battle we cannot help you fight is the one in your mind, because you don't even know you're in it. And so, all of that is just so, it's like impactful when the narrative. I'm reading a book right now, and it's called, it's called Soundtracks by, it's called Soundtracks, and John Acuff, I think. But the fact is that he talks about our patterns of our brain and how we get ourselves into the cycle. And then another amazing book is The Compound Effect. And it talks but how the power that we have internally when we are intentional about how we choose to think, and exponentially what that will mean for our life, our mental health, our relationships, and our joy. It's incredible. So that's kind of the journey I'm on right there. But I also wanted to bring back, you're talking about medications. Some of the greatest triumphs is when our veterans are coming off their medications.
Yes.
We had one veteran that was on like 32 meds a day. After having his dog for a year, he was down to 1 med a day. Only
That's
one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing journey. Yeah.
It is. And seeing that, you just mentioned something right there. That oftentimes we're looking for the quick fix. It's the journey that got him to where he's at. Yeah. It didn't happen overnight. And this is what I was telling, my son this morning was, if you can step back and enjoy your suffering, step back, let it unfold and watch it, observe it. You don't have to be an active part of your suffering anymore. You can observe it, and then you can navigate it. And it's like, oh, wow. That's a whole different narrative. Like, we're not taught. Why are there so many parenting books and we still don't know how to parent? Like, it's, we're not taught how to navigate well. Everybody's worried about parenting. Teach people how to navigate hard situations, and they will become great people.
Yeah.
I mean,
resilience.
Yeah. Smart, articulate, intelligent, good members of society, loving members of society that will help. And that's what we lack is every problem I'm in now, I get to learn how to navigate over. Mm-hmm. I'm starting over because now I understand what I'm up against. And that's the navigation of my own mind and the belief in the lies or not the lies. Do I believe the lies or do I not believe the lies today? Well, I choose not to believe them anymore. And they try to creep in all the time. Yeah. That's just, they have no place to house.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, and what you're talking about is an intentionality. You are intentionally deciding how you're going to frame it, how you're going to think about it, and what you're going to tell yourself about that situation.
Yeah.
That's everything you just said, which is amazing. And that's just such an incredible way to live and to not be hijacked, but also to bring an awareness. Even you just saying that brings a tremendous awareness to listeners who've never maybe even considered thinking. Every thought that comes into my head is not truth. And everything I feel is not truth. It might be real to me because I'm feeling it, but I don't have to accept certain things as truth. We are more in the driver's seat than we think we are. If we could just realize our own power and our own, and just how that works and how the brain works like that. So I think that's really beautiful what you just said. I talk to the veterans about all of that a lot. It's not just about the dog. It's about what they're telling themselves about needing the dog. It's about now getting the attention from the people, because now everybody wants to pet their dog. Now everybody wants to tell them a stupid pet story. It's like they just want to go get milk and leave. Can you just let them? Right. You don't stop the person. When you see somebody with a wheelchair, you smile and you maybe give them a little bit more room, but not a veteran with a service dog. They're going to stop. They get in the way. They stare at the dog. They talk to the dog. They stop and want to talk. Can I pet your dog? They want to interrupt their daily life because they society sees it differently. And it's, a lot of people are just good, well-meaning people, but they just don't realize that this veteran just wants to get on with their life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they don't want that. So, that's a whole nother story, but the intentionality of everything you just said, that was just really awesome. And it's an incredible way to start succeeding in your life and to continue succeeding.
Yeah. And I tell people now, I love being here. I love being financially broke because I'll never be here again. And because now I'm motivated. Now I have passion. Now I have goals, and I have energy every day. Like, I couldn't get out of bed before. I couldn't go to work for 8 hours without sleeping for, another 24 hours. Like, it was terrible. It was, it was tormenting. And I couldn't do things without just torment, period. And now I get to get up every day, and I'm motivated, and I want to work, and I want to work hard, and I want to hurt my body, and I want to feel the muscle pain, and I want to, I want to
feel alive.
Yeah. I'm so alive. Alive.
Want to feel alive. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
It's beautiful. I love what you're doing. I love how you're doing this. How can I be of help? How can society or the people that listen to this be of help? How can we...
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Okay, so the website is northwestbattlebuddies.org, all spelled out, northwestbattlebuddies.org. Okay. We need the help of the American people. We are not government funded. The VA is not paying for these dogs. We need, whether it's $5 a month, whether it's $5,000 a month, we need people to join our monthly giving program, Operation Never Quit. We need people, we need businesses to do third-party fundraisers. We need people to put us in their legacy plans. We need all of that. We have a waiting list of 140 veterans, and all it is doing is growing. And these are men and women who have served our country honorably, that are reaching out for help, that are fighting a suicide rate of 22 veterans a day. And it isn't, even though I believe the government needs to do more for our veterans, but at the end of the day, it is we the people who are free because of them. Because of the ones that went before us and the ones that will come after us. And for me, I didn't have to pay that price. It has been a gift. And so it is we the people that can make a difference in the lives of our American heroes. And Northwest Battle Buddies, northwestbattlebuddies.org is a safe place to invest your heart, your time, and partner with us and help make a difference in the lives of our veterans.
Well, and it's, who doesn't love dogs? I mean,
I know, right?
I mean, seriously, I've seen people give $100,000 to get a dog surgery, and we have people on the street. It's like, people love dogs, so it's a great thing. I mean, and they're such great companions. I've lived in my car for a couple years, so I haven't had the opportunity to get a dog, but I'd love to have a service dog for my diabetes someday. And because it is, there's been a couple times I'm like, I can't move, and just got lucky and survived it. But it's always those things. But these things, you deal with a lot of pain or diabetes or disease that also adds to that mental health detriment, and especially pain. Pain is a thing that, if it's consistent, it pushes you over the edge. But when you have you put a dog in your lap, and you get some snuggle time, the pain is not there. And that's the beautiful thing about, what is it, endorphins that happen when that happens. And is there other types of recognition techniques that the dogs use in regards to you said cortisone and
the dogs alert on cortisol and adrenaline. That's what they'll alert on during a panic attack or a flashback or even a night terror. But a lot of times the night terror interrupts the dog anyway, because they can be violent. And so the dog will immediately alert in there. But, dogs and horses are the only species that I know of, that I'm aware of, that can feel us. And so, the leash goes both ways. And so, for dogs, the first thing is scent, and then it's eyes, and then it's ears. But then the other thing is that when the veterans are out in a very practical way in public, those dogs are going to see it, smell it, or hear it before the veterans ever will. And they really are the veterans' first line of defense as far as alertness. And so we teach our veterans also how to watch what their dog is watching. Pay attention. If your dog's ears are, forward, looking way down that direction, chances are there's something to look at. So if you're in an airport or you're in a grocery store or whatever, and it could be honestly a shady human, because just because they're golden retrievers or labs in general does not mean that they aren't going to have and I'm not saying these are protection dogs, but they are going to alert when people come to their home. They're going to bark at when somebody's outside. And sometimes people can just put off a very interesting, uncomfortable vibe, even to us.
Yeah.
The dogs feel it exponentially. And so we teach the veterans how to use the dogs multiple ways through as a tool, like whether everything from a social barrier to pressure therapy to grounding techniques, even just social mobility, having the courage and the peace to go, because I have my tool with me. So if I walk into this mall and I start to have a panic attack, I know that I can get myself under control by using this tool. So then the veterans will say it, so I can continue the mission and go do what I set out to do.
How do you teach the dogs to smell cortisol?
I'd like to say we do. I'd like to say it's like a drug dog, but we don't. We don't teach that in per se of they're here and we teach detection work. We don't do that. It's through the relationship with the veteran. And then even in the 5 weeks of training, when the veteran starts to spin up, the dog naturally, because of the relationship that is being developed and the intimacy through leadership, calm brain, the exchange of needs fulfilled and protection and structure, that the dogs will, like when Caden alerted with T-Bone, that story I told you in the beginning, Caden did that naturally. The difference is that we were teaching T-Bone. Caden did that naturally. We were teaching T-Bone how to now share affection with it, basically praising the behavior that Caden, I want you to do more of this. If the dog wakes him up from a nightmare and they wake him up, share affection. I want you to do more of this. The dog naturally alerted. Now let's build upon it so it becomes a trait that is consistent.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how that works.
That's really cool. And it's interesting how they can even smell that, or even the diabetes. It's fascinating to me that they can even read that, because I feel it a little bit, but I need monitors, and dogs are high alert. So
they're already
I'm always interested in that, because they have this high sense of smell, and we kind of ruin it in the home with all of our different smells, and they still can pick it apart. And separate it.
Yeah. Even in my for-profit business, so I train people's pet dogs like in like a 30-day program. And so the people might have been in my office, we're having this conversation, and then I'll tell the people. So the dog is all the way in the back of the kennel, and I'm having a conversation with the owners, and the dog hasn't seen the owners for 30 days yet, right? And so then I have the owners step outside, because now I'm going to get this dog ready to take the dog out to him. And the minute I walk that dog into the office where the owners were standing, now there's this concentration of scent in there, and you will see that dog start to air scent, and then excitement. So nothing changed, with the exception of that dog is now smelling the scent of the owners who'd left. And it's altering that dog's demeanor because he smells them. And if those people represent excitement, now he's starting to get excited. His tail's wagging. He's searching for them, because there's a concentration of scent where they were standing in the air. It's incredible. Yeah,
that is. That's beautiful. It just makes me want to get a dog more and more.
I know, right?
So, well, do you have any words of advice or anything you'd like to leave us with? Is something?
Yeah. Well, first of all, as a philosophy in life, one thing that we touched on here is that just never quit. Every human being has value and can bring value.
Yeah.
And at the end of every graduation, when we're talking to our veterans, I tell them straight in their face, I'm like, don't you ever quit. There's always a tomorrow, and there's always a better day, and you are worth it. And you bring value. The self-talk in your brain that people think all the time isn't real. If it's negative, it's not. I mean, people may not, they may just not even be real. They're like, you don't even know what you're talking about. I'm just telling you, don't quit.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is coming. There is a brighter day, and you are in charge of your future. And the other thing I would say to the American people is Northwest Battle Buddies need your help.
Yeah.
northwestbattlebuddies.org. Our veterans need our help, and Northwest Battle Buddies needs the help of we the people.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the Suicide Monk. This has been so good. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you being here. I love what you're doing. I love everything about this. I mean, you touched my heart over and over on this, and it's just, and I've recently started to enter into relationships with veterans. Even growing up in Colorado Springs, I was separated from that at a young age, and now being on this side of it,
Yeah.
I've made some valuable friendships of guys that have their stories are hard and horrific and things that you can't imagine. And I'm so grateful that you're doing what you're doing and providing that opportunity, because animals, dogs, horses, they're healing to the heart, the soul, the mind, the body, just everything. It's just motivation, and I love it. So thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, it's been a wonderful conversation with you. I'm really glad I got to meet you, and thank you so much for being able to share our story on your platform. And hopefully we get to talk again someday.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Thank you.